Good afternoon to our listeners, and we are live on HTBS, Heart Talk Between Sisters, where we are sharing stories, inspiring growth, and empowering lives. We just want to welcome you into the month of May. This is what we call Mother's Month. This is the month for mothers and to recognize and acknowledge the mothers, the adopted mothers, the spiritual mothers, and the other mothers in our lives. And so this afternoon, it is my pleasure and my honor to welcome our guest, Dr. Linnis Joseph, who is actually a medical practitioner, a GP or general practitioner, and she works in the islands of Trinidad and Tobago. And Dr. Joseph, she told me to call her Dr. Linnis. So I will call her Dr. Linnis. And I don't want to preempt all the things that she's going to share, but our program this afternoon is going to be a little different. So we're going to have Dr. Linnis on for the first part of the program. We have opened up the lines. So there is a WhatsApp number that you can send a WhatsApp message to, or you can call that WhatsApp number if you wish to join us in studio live and ask any questions or make any comments or any message you may want to send to your mother, any one of your mothers, please feel free to do so. At the ending of the program, we're going to bring back Karen Asgarali, whom I would have interviewed. She was the first person I interviewed on Heart Talk Between Sisters, and she's going to talk about her right party that she's having on Sunday. Okay, so Dr. Linnis Joseph, welcome to Heart Talk Between Sisters.
Thank you so much.
All right, so let's go with the conversation. So you know how I usually like to start my conversations, right? So my conversation starts with tell us who is Linnis Joseph?
Such a loaded question. So Linnis Joseph, the mother, the parent, the sister, the daughter, you know how it goes. We are so many things to so many people. The doctor, the friend, the church member, the Toastmaster, the coach.
Whoa.
I'll start with who I've been. I was a little girl with a dream to become a doctor one day, and coming from what eventually became significant poverty, that dream was threatened at many points. It was threatened when I was trying to get into my first choice school, St. Augustine Girls High School, to be able to get the best education I thought I could get to become a doctor, to get a scholarship. Since my parents couldn't afford it, I was going for a scholarship, to a national scholarship, which at the time, we only had 50 in the country being awarded by the government. So I had to be one of 50 awardees. Took me 2 tries to get it, but praise God, I did. In 1994 to 1999, I was a medical student at the University of the West Indies, Faculty of Medical Sciences. So I graduated and worked in the Bahamas at Princess Margaret Hospital for about 4.5 years, completed my internship and worked in accident and emergency. Then returned home as a general practitioner working with the Northwest Regional Health Authority for just about 20 years until I recently resigned to start my private practice and my online teaching practice.
Wow. Okay.
So any more details? There's so much in that.
I know. So, of course, you're not going to be pausing and asking more questions. So basically, you've worked in the public sector as a medical practitioner for most of your career, but 20 years is a long time to spend in any profession and any field, and you're still so young.
25 in all.
Yeah.
In Trinidad.
And you're still so young, we're not giving away your age, So yeah, that's really good. That's very commendable. And we thank you for your service to the members of the public in our country and also in the Bahamas. That's really highly commendable. So you talked about so many things, mother, doctor, even when you got this scholarship and you had to try twice before getting the scholarship, that to me shows so much perseverance and persistence and not giving up on your dreams, because, sometimes we want to do something and we fail once, we fail twice, we fail 3 times, and then we figure, look, this probably is not for me. Let me just try something else. But you didn't give up on your dreams at all from being a child. And I really admire that. I truly, truly admire that. I said on the last program I was on, I think it was last week, I was telling them, I always imagine myself being owning a hotel and a guest house and running a hotel and guest house. And that was my dream when I went into hotel school and stuff. And, it changed along the way, but it could still happen because I'm still young and so many things can happen. So yeah, it's really nice to know that as a child, you were able to fulfill what you dreamed of doing the most, and you're still doing it even after leaving the public service. You're still doing it. So tell us some more.
Well, when I was in the public service, I found that I had a desire to do way more preventive medicine than I was getting the opportunity to in the public service. My official job title was primary care physician one. Now, primary care is preventive medicine by definition, which means it's screening, it's education, it's making sure that people stay well, that they get vaccinations, and they get everything to prevent them from getting sick. However, most people only come to the health services when they are sick, except for children who have a mandatory schedule and pregnant women who still sometimes cheat on the schedule. There's a very structured schedule to prevent illnesses in those two groups. And after you've had an illness, let's say diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, even asthma, there are clinics set up to what we call secondary prevention, to keep you from getting the complications of those diseases. But I found we weren't doing enough on the preventive medicine side. And I really wanted to dive deeper into that. And that's how I got into health coaching.
Okay, interesting. So is it then that there is a mix of natural health with what you do now?
Oh, absolutely. There's everything to do with health is involved in what I do now. The first stage of my coaching program is what I call training your intuition. It's a mix of education and just building your sensitivity to yourself. You know that inner knower that we have in us. Some say my mind tell me, or my mind told me to do such and such. Some people will say God spoke to me, and it's not the same thing, but sometimes we can't tell them apart. Sometimes we just had a feeling. And that is very often a guide because they're more than just the five senses. And sometimes we need to tap into that deeper intuition to let us know what direction we need to take with our health and with some of these decisions. So the first thing that I do is to help people to tune into that inner something could be wrong. And it is so valuable to tell you when to investigate something further, when to dig deeper into a particular area. Maybe you know a couple of people in your family had a particular problem and you want to make sure you don't have it. Or maybe nobody had something, but you just keep feeling like, I need to check my breast. I need to check my breast. You're not finding a lump, but something you just feel obsessed with doing mammograms. And you can, follow and dig deep and learn more about how to explore some of these things. And then in those times before you have a disease, it's the best time if you want to take herbal medicine and you want to use, see a naturopath or pray, that's the best time to do it before anything comes up. So I encourage all of that.
Right. So then there would be a mix of dietary, lifestyle, eating habits, that kind of thing that you incorporate, right? Because I see your picture here is online doctor. What is an online doctor? Because don't I have to go into an office and you test my pressure, you take my blood, you take my height, my weight, you check my pulse?
I do that as well.
Online, but how do you do that?
Right. So there are different, the main three, I know I offer more than three services. I offer the office services. I am actually in office 9 hours a week, and I can do all those things you described. But then there's the online service for people who need to talk to a doctor. They need some advice. They need to figure out what to do. Sometimes, when you wake up not feeling well and you can't
Yeah.
work and you need a sick leave and you have to drag your sick body off your sick bed to go to the doctor to get the sick leave. So some of those cases I can actually help online because having done this for so many years, I know the questions to ask. I know what
Right.
to look for. I've even had people open their mouth and take a picture of their throat, you know,
Oh
and
my.
I can tell that their tonsils are inflamed and that they needed antibiotics. Not everything can be done online. Let me make it clear. There's some
Right.
things like my patient wanted a pap smear. Okay, meet me in the office. I can't do a pap
Yeah.
smear online, right? But
Yeah.
there are a
So
lot
these
of
are, so you do like virtual, they have to be virtual calls. They're not
virtual
phone
calls.
calls.
Most of them are video calls. There sometimes it can be phone or text, but I only do phone and text with people I already know.
Right.
So that I already know the person and I know what we are talking about. So
Right.
then they can just give me an update. They can
Mm-hmm.
send me their blood pressure results and I could let them know how to adjust their meds.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the things that I've done over the years, I realized, especially during COVID, we
Mm-hmm.
realized how much we could do without being face to face with a patient. We could do
Right.
quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get to the point where we do need to see them, it's just a matter of making those arrangements. So I have
Mm-hmm.
facilities for medication to be delivered. I do house calls as well within limited areas.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found ways to reach the patients where they need it in ways that, I think pre-COVID, things we never even considered because
Yeah.
it was not the way things were done.
Yeah, that is amazing. And, especially having worked in the public sector to be basically thinking outside the box.
I realized during COVID that I totally loved the online telemedicine. I had some time making the calls to some of the COVID patients in my community, in
Oh,
my
yeah.
county.
Yes.
And the support that I was able to give was priceless. Sometimes when people were just scared and panicking, or they had a relative in hospital and they were worried, and even times when we figured just from talking to them on the phone that they needed antibiotics, we just made
Mm,
arrangements to have the meds delivered to the home, help them to
mm,
figure out how to work out getting food delivered to the house, how to get
mm,
different facilities, because once you start working in an online space, you
mm.
start finding out more services that are available in the online space. So you
Yeah.
start to network and tell people, hey, contact this person. This person does delivery of such and such. You give them new ways of doing things that they didn't consider before.
Yes. Very interesting. Interesting. So, does that take a toll on your family life or your life at home? We didn't talk about your family as yet, but you know, whatever you want to share. I know some of it is quite
Okay.
private and personal, but certainly just knowing that, listeners are a lot of women listening into the program or who would listen to it on YouTube. And so, we want to just inspire other women and stuff, but feel free, share, don't share, it's up to you.
My life is poured out as an offering for people to be blessed. So
Mm.
there's no real secret here.
Thank
My
you.
job in hospital when I was in the Bahamas was so stressful and took such a toll on my single life. Thank God there was no
Mm.
husband or child or dog or
Mhm. No
I
chick, no chin.
right. I remember literally falling asleep standing up in a surgery. And thank God it only happened
Oh,
once. But
my.
I had gone to work at 9 a.m. Saturday morning, 9 a.m. In
Mhm.
surgery. I started my shift. And we used to do weekend calls. So I worked straight through from Friday, 9 a.m., straight through Saturday, 9 a.m., straight into Monday. Sorry, from Saturday into Sunday, into Monday, 9 a.m. And that's when my regular work day started. And I continued going. And that Monday was a surgery day. And the surgery list was running late. So at 7 p.m., I was still on my feet, scrubbed and suited up for the surgery. Thank God I was not the surgeon, I was just the assistant. So when my legs gave way and I almost collapsed, they just told me to go home at 7 p.m. on Monday night. But that day, I decided I lost count of how many hours that was. That was 2 full 24-hour periods, 48, plus working almost 12 hours, at least 10 more hours in that day itself. So it was criminal. And that's when I decided to change my career goals from wanting to be a surgeon for something that could support life. So accident and emergency was an improvement because I had shifts, but still the intensity and the stress of those shifts, it was a lot. So primary care was yet an improvement because then I was working 8 to 4. It was easier to pick up and drop kids to school. But even that was stressful. So the online practice has been the best work-life balance I've ever had in my life. That's all I can say.
Yes, yes. And that would have been after the public service, basically on your own,
Yes.
working on your own.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, what women have to do, eh? What
For
women
sure.
have to do. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go on the gender biases and stuff, but the woman is the one that has responsibility for the children and the home.
Yeah.
Although we do have house husbands, and I've seen some very successful stories of with house husbands where the wife is the main breadwinner and the husband is the one at home with the responsibility of everything. But when the woman gets home, she takes on her responsibility, for that time. So yeah, I guess to each person, you decide what would work for you, what works best for you. Yeah. So, so you spoke about, so let's hear some more about life in the public service in Trinidad and Tobago as a medical practitioner, some highs, some lows.
The high for me is that I always wanted to be a doctor in public service. I always wanted to serve the public. Having had my stint in poverty, I don't consider myself poor because I think poor is a mindset of lack. But I know what lack is. I know what being broke is. I know what having insufficient funds to accomplish your goals and dreams, and sometimes even your survival. I know what that feels like. So I really wanted to give back to those people. And as a child and a young adult going to the public service, I often was not happy with the quality of care that I got. Going to the health center, not feeling heard, being rushed.
Yeah.
So I went in hoping to make a difference in that area,
Yeah.
give patients attention, give them a listening ear, let them know someone cares about them. That was a very important goal for me. It 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 was difficult. Let's just say the public service that I appreciate because you get a lot you get a lot of free service in Trinidad and Tobago that we need to appreciate. There are a lot
Right.
of tests that are done. We don't pay for medical care like in America, like in many of the developed countries. And while we think our medical care is horrible, it's not the
Mhm.
worst in the world, despite what we believe.
Hmm.
But we do have long waits. And sometimes after a long wait, we feel like we're not heard. We feel like we're just brushed off. People listen to the first sentence and they think they understand what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
And that led me into medical coaching. And I do medical coaching in different capacities. I have a coaching program, but I also use every opportunity like this to speak out on educating patients everywhere of every income bracket on how to be better patients, how to ask better questions, how to know how to start a conversation with your doctor to keep them interested, what not to say, because I've had to say this so many times in my career. When you walk up to a doctor and say this child is wheezing, many doctors ask you to clarify what you mean. And I found that 80% of the people who say that just mean that the child has a noise while they're breathing, or there's a rattling in the nose or the chest. And it's not always wheezing. Wheezing in particular makes doctors think that the child has asthma. And some will automatically prescribe Ventolin, which is the treatment for asthma, sometimes without listening to the child's chest. Sometimes because of the pressures of the numbers they have to see, you'll get a prescription without a proper assessment. And I love to train people to say what the actual problem is and don't try to work out the diagnosis. So don't come in and say, I think I have a brain tumor. Say, I am having headaches every morning for 2 hours. That's very intense, throbbing on the right side. And it comes back at 3 o'clock in the evening for about an hour. You describe what is happening to you rather than jump to say, well, I went on Google and I think this is cucamongophobia. That's my diagnosis for everything.
Oh my
So
goodness.
patient education is my passion. I say there's school for doctors, there's no school for patients.
That is a very interesting. I have never heard that perspective from any medical practitioner, honestly. And it's almost like you're prepping to go to a lawyer. When you hire a lawyer to represent you for something, you have to be sure of what you're going to talk about. So I mean, I am learning from this about, so basically you're talking about these symptoms and talking about what your body is experiencing, the symptoms your body is experiencing, rather than calling it what it is, if you know what I mean.
What you
Right.
think?
So yeah, yeah, that's really an interesting perspective to go with, especially in the case of children, because children manifest so many different symptoms and it could mean so many different things. You know, so yeah, so while we're having this conversation, just a reminder: call or message 1-678-856-3709 if you wish to join us in this conversation, if you have any questions, or if you just want to make any comments to us while we're in this program. We are on Heart Talk Between Sisters, where we are sharing stories and empowering lives. And I am having conversation this afternoon with Dr. Linnis Joseph, who is a medical practitioner operating in the islands of Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. So, Dr. Linnis, let's continue with your life in public service. So we just got a schooling on being a patient. Yes. So tell us some more.
Well, I'd love everybody to remember that the public service serves the public. That's a large group of people. So many times people come in and they complain, I've been here for 2 hours. If we can have realistic expectations, it can help the frustration. So if you just got shot, or you just had a car accident, or you are bleeding, or you can't breathe, or you had a stroke or something that looks like a heart attack, you are an emergency. You need to go to the emergency room, and they need to be alerted of what the emergency is, that you're bleeding, that you're not breathing, that you passed out, we don't know why. If you have a known medical disease, that needs to be said up front. Many times people panic and they walk in and they demand to be seen, but nobody knows why you think you should be seen. And because of that, the communication gets lost, and people will complain that they are not getting what they want without realizing that they did not say what they want.
Yes.
And
Well, on that note, sorry, we're gonna stick a pin and we are going to take a short break, and we'll be right back on Heart Talk Between Sisters.
Are you ready to dive into heart-to-heart conversations that touch your soul? Look no further than Heart Talk Between Sisters, your story segment. Join us for a journey of laughter, tears, and unbreakable bonds as we explore the unique connection between sisters. From shared memories to deep reflections, our segment is a safe space to celebrate sisterhood in all its beauty and complexity. Let your heart soar as we discuss love, life, and everything in between, all with the understanding and warmth only sisters can provide. Whether you're reminiscing about childhood adventures or seeking advice on navigating life's twists and turns, Heart Talk Between Sisters is here for you. Tune in and feel the love radiate through the airwaves. Don't miss out on the magic of sisterly connection. Tune in to Heart Talk Between Sisters, your story segment today. For more information, call 1-868-743-4133. That's 1-868-743-4133.
Okay, so we are on Heart Talk Between Sisters, streaming from the Caribbean islands of Trinidad and Tobago. And in studio, we have Dr. Linnis Joseph, who is a medical practitioner. And Dr. Linnis is talking to us about her life as a medical practitioner in the public service in Trinidad and Tobago and giving us, well, schooling us on how to be good patients in the system. Dr. Linnis.
Yes. So like I was just saying, having reasonable expectations of the time you're going to spend in the health sector can seriously, significantly reduce your stress. So if you are an emergency, you are going to be one of the people who are going to be immediately attended to. But if you are not perceived as in an emergency, you could be considered urgent. And even an urgent situation can be seen in an hour or two, depending on what else is happening. So you need to be patient. And if you think that you were forgotten, just in a reasonable tone, draw attention to the people who are, in the area. So usually, depending on which section you're in, there's somebody you can consult for information. Excuse me, I'm here for this reason. And I'm wondering, could you give me an idea when I can be seen? And if something worsens, like let's say someone came in because they were feeling dizzy and they just fainted, you can alert the authorities that, okay, things just took a turn for the worse, and they will come to you. But if all you do is complain and make noise, then you're just one of the noisemakers. You're not actually presenting your needs in a way that can be received, processed, and actually get assistance. Another thing that you can do, say in the health center, remember that the health center does not usually, it's not the place for emergencies. If it's the closest place you can access, then you may need to look there. But if you have transport, sometimes it's better to head straight to the emergency room if you are having one of those emergencies that I raised, than stop at the health center, because that delay could cost a life or significant illness, especially if we're talking about heart attack, stroke, these kinds of emergencies. But once you do get to the health center, you can ask to speak to a nurse or ask to speak to the nurse in charge if you think you're having an urgent situation that needs immediate attention. And other than that, you understand that there is a system in place, so you will be expected to give your name, take a number, have a seat, and you're going to be going through the system section by section. The clerk is going to call you and register you. Then the nurse is going to screen you. Then maybe the senior nurse will interview you. Then you'll get to the doctor. So don't dream of leaving a health center in under 2 hours under normal circumstances.
Oh my goodness. Oh my.
Because
And
there
I think,
are stages to go through. There are things to go through.
yeah.
You're not the only person there when you arrive,
Yes. I understand that, but I also understand from the patient's perspective. I mean, we're not going to go on and on about the health system and health sector here, right? But from a patient's perspective, especially if you're bringing a child in or you're bringing a loved one in, you really want that urgent attention, And I guess that's why they say, well, okay, go private and let it be addressed privately. But sometimes the
No,
private system may not have what is required to save the life, and they may have to end up referring them to the public system.
just
That
remember
would probably
that
happen.
in an emergency, you are considered the priority. So
Right. But priority is saying is
we
2 hours.
no. I said health center. I stopped talking about
Ah,
the emergency room and then I went to the health center.
okay.
So
All
in a
right.
health center, you're coming for your vaccine, you're coming for your checkup, you're coming for whatever. If you give yourself an expectation of 2 hours, then you're not going to be, you came at 8 and at 9 o'clock, you're throwing a fit. Because if you understand that they're going to have to pull your file and then they have to screen you and then the nurse has to speak to you and then the doctor has to speak to you because
Yeah.
it's not one person. Sometimes it's 40 people. Sometimes it's 100 people
Yes.
that they're
Yes. Yes.
processing. So if
Yeah.
you tell yourself, eat before you come, make sure you walk with a snack, make sure you have some water on you, walk with a book, a phone, a game, something to entertain you in the time, you can make your life and the life of the staff that are trying so hard to help you so much easier. If
I think that's easier said than done. Because if it's okay, so I'm seeing Karen Asgarali online with us. Karen, thanks for joining us in the studio. I hope she's hearing us at some
Yes,
point.
I'm hearing. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you clearly, loud and clear.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Karen, I don't know if you were listening to what Dr. Linnis was saying about emergency services in the public system. But I
Yes.
was just remembering, when you had your experience, what was your experience like accessing? Because yours was definitely life and death emergency. What was your experience like in the emergency services in the public system?
I have absolutely no complaints, and maybe it's because, as Dr. Joseph said, it was an emergency, so I was given priority. But even after going into the emergency room, like in the days after while I was there in the hospital, up to today, I say I had really a good experience. It mightn't be what everybody would have, but I have really no complaints. Now, when I went in that night, at first, I thought I was not getting treatment, and I was wondering, why I was just lying there and nothing was happening. But apparently, when I look back and, I listen to things that people say, I realized that they had started what they could do.
Yes.
And they were just waiting until a family member was contacted before they do
Right,
any further work,
right, right.
Yes. So it
Right.
was
I'm
only in
sure.
retrospect I realized that. And if I know you're going to say something, but let me just finish this before
Yeah,
I
sure,
forget my
sure. Of
thought.
course. Of course, of course.
What Dr. Joseph was saying there about, preparing yourself and waiting. It is difficult for from the patient's perspective because everybody's case is important as far as they're concerned. But what
Yes.
I
Yes.
observed in the time that I was there, while I was there for a while in the hospital, and the truth of the matter is, these nurses, we are understaffed. We have to face that. We are working with limited resources, medical resources, and everything. But they do their best. They have a procedure that they have to follow. They do their best to execute what they have to do. I'm not saying that we don't have people who don't try their best, but generally speaking, they do their best given the structure of the work that they have to do. And, if you just come in on the odd moment, it might appear as though they're not working or they're not willing or they're just lying around, but it's really not like that. I was there for long enough to just lie down and observe everything that was going on.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's so good to get the two sides of the same
I
coin, yeah?
appreciate hearing the other side as well. And I
Yeah.
appreciate that Ms. Asgarali did mention that while you're sitting down, one thing that I think the health profession could really work on, if we could just get the staff, enough staff that we could assign somebody to do it, is the communication. Because as soon as you come into the emergency room and you've been assessed as an emergency and you see everybody rush to you, you may remember, I don't know your story at all, Ms. Asgarali, so forgive me, but
That's
most
okay.
likely you would have had an IV put up, some bloods would have been taken, they may have sent you for a test. Is that fairly accurate?
Honestly, I don't think so. In my case, I I was a gunshot victim. So my chin was broken. So I think their objective was just to stop the bleeding at that point in time.
So they did attend to you immediately.
Immediately, yes.
Right. So I did not know your story, like I said. So in a case where you're a gunshot victim, they have to make sure that your airway, first of all, is patent, that you can breathe. Make sure your heart is beating. And once we have the A and the B being breathing, A being airway, then they could look for circulation, which is the C, which is the bleeding. They have to stop the bleeding. So you would have been an emergency and you would have been jumped on immediately. While everybody was attending to you, everybody who was outside waiting is now complaining that they're taking so long.
That's right, yes.
And this is why for one or two patients, I have said to them, if you came in here with a gunshot wound or a heart attack or a stroke, would you want the doctors to leave you to go and listen to somebody who has a cold?
Good point.
Well, then it goes back to staffing and resources, as you rightfully said, and we could never predict how many persons will come in for emergency treatment. So I think, Dr. Linnis, you've muted your mic. So
just temporarily in case the background is noisy. Is it?
Oh, lovely. Okay. No, it's fine. It's fine. We're nice and clear. So so that's it's interesting, listening to the both of you carry on conversation. I mean, if I were to bring in somebody who had a bad experience in the health service, health system, it would be interesting to hear their perspective. But Dr. Linnis, I wanted to ask you, and we are going to bring you back on our program next week, Dr. Linnis, so that you can share some more about your story and your life, right? Today, as I said, it's really just that we're doing it a little different today. And we also wanted to accommodate Karen because of the program she has on Sunday evening. That's a very important program. But Dr. Linnis, tell us about your first experience of seeing one of your patients die. I know this is a gloomy, but what was that experience like?
I can't believe you dropped that bomb on me without warning. Thank you.
Sorry.
A little heads up next time.
Okay.
Next time.
Even at the well, when I shouldn't say one of your patients actually, yeah, because
but
like sometimes in emergency treatment, the person dies while you're administering emergency, that kind of thing. Yeah. But okay, so we get that for next week. So
I will answer you. I will totally answer you. It's just that's something that's very devastating for health professionals, not just the doctors, the nurses, everybody who would have made contact with this patient goes through an element of shock and grief. And I think that it is under-recognized and it's under-acknowledged because I mean, in an ideal situation, we would probably get some amount of counseling or processing for that. I'm sure my first experience would have been as a medical student. So, I mean, I am happy to be able to say that I have never been responsible directly for the death of any patient. And that I know not every healthcare professional can say that without question. I was part of a team where a patient passed away, where we were all wondering, could we have done different? Should we have done different? If we did this, if we did that. So there's a real hard sort of self-blame, self-reflection that goes through. And the public doesn't know that we have things called morbidity and mortality meetings when you work in hospital, where when somebody dies or they have significant illness that, that we think that there may have been another way we could have approached it and maybe helped in some way.
Yes.
I don't know that we go through these things just about every week when you work in hospital to help people process. If there's an incident in any health institution, there are steps to be taken to ensure that We reflect. There's always an incident book. There are whole lots of processes to check for everything that happens to make sure that there's nothing that we didn't do, anything that we missed, or anything that we could correct. But on a personal level, each person has to go through the trauma of losing a life. I absolutely hated when I was an intern and we were responsible for what you call a code. I suppose the people who like to watch medical shows on television know what this is. When, a patient crashes and their heart stops or their breathing stops and we need to resuscitate. We all rush in on that patient and we're there humping and pumping. And unless that patient had an instruction to DNR, which is do not resuscitate, and there are certain situations that would get that kind of order. If we know that this person is on their last and we've counseled the family, we've counseled the patient, and they've decided that should the heart stop, they do not want to take any extreme measures. Unless you have something like that, we have to try for a full hour to resuscitate someone who seems to be dying. That is a very traumatic hour, let me let you know. It's a very traumatic hour. And if it's unsuccessful at the end of that time, everybody who was involved has a grief process to go through. Now, I think most of us just shut down and we either distract and move on to the next thing, or we have a moment where we just need to shut down and kind of like gather ourselves. Few of us will actually talk it through with another colleague or with somebody else and, question, was there anything more I could have done? Should I have, did I this, did I that? But it's not, that's a very traumatic experience for health professionals. And I think sometimes when we are trying to look strong for everyone, people take it to mean that we have no feelings or we're so brusque. But sometimes the way people are in that time is part of their own grief response. I don't want to talk about this too long. I hope that
yes. It's interesting because I don't think I've heard, and I've been around several doctors, and I've never really, I never really talked to them about that, how they dealt with their first death experience. But from a personal level, what did you do to cope with the trauma that you were experiencing? You mentioned talking with other colleagues, but how else, when you went home and you were by yourself, what did you do to cope with that trauma?
Well, in the run-of-the-mill cases where you don't know the person at all and you were just called to resuscitate a stranger, you do your best. And as an intern especially, I'm not in charge. I'm only following instructions. When I was like in accident and emergency and I was the head of the shift, it had a different feeling. But thankfully, the only people who ever died on shift when I was in charge of the shift, I can't even think of anybody specific, but it would have been people who would have come in just before they passed, so you are so morbid asking me this. But like there were two patients I could think of who had head crushing injuries and they came in still alive. But just by assessing their injuries, we knew they would not make it. So those were I still remember the people. I can still, as I'm speaking, I can picture them lying on the.
So, oh my goodness. That person's from more than 15 years ago, 10, 15 years
more
ago.
than 20 years ago. I've been in
Trinidad.
I returned to Trinidad in 2004. So these things would have happened prior to 2004. And I still remember it. I still remember the first child when I was doing my pediatric internship. I think this is the first loss that touched me personally. And he wasn't even at the time directly my patient. That should tell you. He was everybody's child because he was sort of abandoned by his mother. He had severe medical conditions that required hospital care, and the mother had other children, and she just couldn't cope anymore. So it got to a point where she was not really visiting, and he was living in the hospital for a couple of years. So each of
Oh, my
who
goodness.
passed through, this is in the Bahamas, not in Trinidad,
Yes.
but
Yes.
everybody who passed through internship would have met him. And
Yes.
I said, to this day, I say it was most inconsiderate of him to decide to die on my internship.
Yes. Oh my.
Because you come in and you meet him and he's right there. He was pleasant, he was cheerful because this was his home. You were visiting his home, you
Yes.
know, and he was just a lovely child. And I wasn't on his team or anything when he passed, but the day that I came to work and I heard that he had passed, I felt
Yes.
like I lost my own child. And to this
Oh,
day,
yes.
I can't say I've gotten over it, but I mean, it was so, this is the thing, it's so intangible in a way
Mm-hmm.
with the patient because you don't really know the people, but you feel like you know the people. So you feel like
Yes.
it's your child, but it's not your child. So you're not sure how to feel. You're not, it could be a bit confusing. And I could tell you that there was no kind of counseling or support. So the most I did was talk to the other nurses, talk to the other doctors who knew him, and we all had our little memorial talking
Yes.
about him. We can't believe he's gone, that kind of thing. But it never
Yes.
felt enough for me.
Yes, yes. Well, this is a good point to just pause. We're gonna pause again. But Dr. Linnis, this is what Heart Talk Between Sisters is all about, eh? It's about, it is about us pouring out our heart and our soul. And thankfully we have someone who assists persons in dealing with trauma. Cara and Asgarali, we're gonna hear a bit some more from her about what she does to help persons cope with trauma. So we are gonna take a short break and we'll be right back on Heart Talk Between Sisters.
I'm going to come right back and ask you this question, O'Connell, and then I want you to answer the same question from a legal perspective. The question is, you said that 3 months after you broke up,
6 weeks.
6 weeks after you broke up, you found out.
Only after a court-ordered deposition 2 years or several years later did I get all of the facts.
Okay, let's deal with it without the facts.
Okay.
What made you feel at the time when you were aware that a child was in the making, that you were the father?
Okay, that's a good question. And I had dated the mother previously for 2.5 years. I had allowed her and her brother to live with me when their mother put them out. And this was a person I trusted with my life. So when she said, I'm pregnant and the baby is yours, and I'm unaware of her having a relationship with anybody else besides me, because she was the only person I was involved with, and based on the date that she told me, that was at the time that we were still dating as a couple.
So
it never dawned on me that she gave me the wrong date.
So you believe this woman, and you believe that you were the father of the child, the biological father of the child, when she said you were the father.
Yes.
What makes a father legally to a child?
Order this amazing downloadable audio today. Contact 1-868-397-5961 or 1-678-856-3709. To make your purchase and receive your download of this amazing educational conversation, visit our website, www.wcanradio.us.
All right, and we are back on Heart Talk Between Sisters. And we just heard the brainchild between Heart Talk Between Sisters, and that's Dr. Clarence Green having a very intense and a very serious interview with a gentleman on one of his programs. But on Heart Talk Between Sisters, today, this Friday afternoon, we are streaming from the islands of Trinidad and Tobago, and we are having a conversation with Dr. Linnis Joseph, who has been telling us about her experiences and her life as a medical practitioner. We will have her back with us on the program next week to talk some more about some of her challenges and experience in her own personal life, because Dr. Linnis has said that her life is an open book. In fact, she has shared some of her experiences on her Instagram pages, which we will share with this recording when you see it on YouTube. And so, Dr. Linnis, you were talking to us about coping with having, as a medical doctor, having to deal with death, persons who you are attending to, not always your patients, but persons who you are attending to having passed away or having died during that process. And you mentioned some important things, that there was no counseling that you went for, or any interventions that you went for, psychosocial interventions, but you would talk among your colleagues about it. So I want to bring in at this point Karen Asgarali, who is also with us. And Karen Asgarali has been doing some work on helping persons cope with traumatic experiences. And Karen is going to tell us about her Right Party, an event, a fundraising event that she is having this Sunday evening down at San Fernando, South Trinidad. So Karen, over to you.
Thank you very much, Alana. Is it okay if I just go back a little bit to what Dr. Linnis was saying?
Of course you can. That's what Heart Talk Between Sisters is all about.
Yeah, I mean, she really tugged at my heartstrings there. This really is all about a heart talk. But, I was just thinking, we see people who might look very efficient, who might be on time, who might be pleasant, and we have no idea what they're going through. And, you really got to the heart of the matter there when you asked her that question about how doctors, and she specifically, how they deal with, having lost a patient. And it's something I've been thinking about, not because I'm morbid, Dr. Linnis, but I've been thinking about it because, mental health is not something that you can see, challenges to your mental health. Recently I was telling you, I attended an HSSC conference, and, you talk about health and safety, and you talk about things like, spilled toxic substances, you talk about broken equipment and things like that. Those are things you can see. But these issues, these traumatic incidents, these are things that have effects that we cannot see, but it doesn't mean that they're not real.
Yes.
And, you and I were talking about this. We talked about 15% of employable adults having to go through this kind of trauma and how it has affected the economics of the global economics in terms of it costing, like, I think it was 1.3 billion they quoted in some WHO quoted in 2022. So at this point, I was thinking that we really need to get other programs in. And especially, when you think about medical doctors and these people, I know they need to find different things, like, apart from what they're always doing. Yes, they're academics and they write and they study. But this program that I do, it's called Writing to Heal. And Writing to Heal explores different ways that we can use writing to help us overcome trauma and to help us build a legacy of resilience. And I've been doing that since the pandemic, during a time when people really, really needed an outlet. They couldn't go anywhere. And I started doing this, and I make sure I always put in this, that I'm not an English teacher and I'm not a psychologist, but I've survived trauma. I use these tools, and now what I do is I share these tools with other people in a very safe, confidential environment in a Zoom room online. And, I've found that apart from the writing, what helps is when we get together and people start sharing. I'm always amazed at the support, the camaraderie that develops over that 6-week period that I work with a particular group. And, it's not just the writing, it's just knowing that there's somebody else there You don't even know who the person is, but they're there and they're supporting you. They're batting in your corner and supporting you. Now, although I do it online, every so often the participants want to meet in person. And so, with Mental Health Month being the theme of where to start, we decided to host a tea party. We call it the Write Party, WRITE party. And it's being held on the 5th of May, which is it's on Sunday coming. And it's at 2:00 promptly. I have to say that because we have the venue booked from 2 to 4. We have those hours, so we have to work within those hours. And it's at the Royal Hotel in San Fernando. And the whole theme is about mental health, thriving when nurtured. And it's just coincidental that it happens to also be the month of May when we celebrate mothers. And, they're so connected because mothers are all about nurturing, and mental health thrives when it's nurtured. So that's the event. And at the event, you will be one of our speakers, Alana. You'll be talking about the effect of trauma in, a contemporary setting where we have to deal with things like human trafficking and all sorts of different types of abuse and so on. We also have a psychologist present, Camille Campbell, who will be talking about trauma itself and how it can affect us and things that we can probably do to try to offset it. And after that, what we'll do is go through a writing session. So at the end of the session, each person would have written something, based on everything that they heard and based on questions that I would be asking and guiding them through the writing.
Okay, well, that sounds like a full plate, including a cup of tea or a couple of cups of tea and a tea plate.
Yes,
all
that's
in
right.
one. Oh, yes. So I think it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be a small group of persons. It's not a very large group. So it's going to be quite intimate, and yeah, persons aren't obligated to share what they're writing.
No, they're not. No, they
Right.
don't have to. But most of the time, as I told you, once we get in the setting and they start write, some of them start off saying, "I can't write anything. I don't know how to write a poem. I can't write prose. I can't do anything." But at the end of it, invariably, because of the lead, I ask questions and I just tell them, answer the questions you want to answer. You don't have to answer all. So they just jot down short notes from the questions that I ask, and then they use the notes to create a poem or a piece of a paragraph of a story or something. And as I said, invariably people write, and I am actually always amazed at how well they write, the pieces they write in that short 10 minutes that we write for.
Yes. Oh, 10 minutes. Wow.
Yes.
That's super short.
Well, that's when we do it online, because all I do is just give them the practice, but we'll be using maybe a little more time than that on Sunday.
Okay, that would be great. I think I'm going to challenge myself to write something.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And Dr. Linnis Joseph and Dr. Clarence Green, if you can join us on Sunday, please, the tickets. Oh, you didn't talk about cost, because if it's in a hotel, there's going to be a cost attached to that.
Yes. Well, it's a fundraiser, because since 2021, Project Rare has been running Writing to Heal free of charge. And I have to let you know that I've been doing that. It means I have to pay for Zoom. I have to pay lots of stuff. Once you're doing something, there are going to be financial costs attached to it.
Yes, of course.
And I'm no longer employed, as you know. I work for myself. So we need the funding. And so a fundraiser, in addition to which we hosted it in the pristine setting. Serene, beautiful setting of the Royal Hotel in San Fernando.
I must say, it is beautiful. I've been there once to visit, and oh my God, it's breathtaking. If you'd like nature, plants, trees, flowers, lovely breeze, although we'll be in an air-conditioned room, but there's a nice breezy dining area outside where you could just sit and chill. It's a really lovely environment. Very green.
I think very green. And what's nice is that even though it's so green and you are smack in the middle of the city, you can still look out and see if you want. You can see the periphery of San Fernando. It's on a little height too, so you can see all around San Fernando. It's beautiful.
And San Fernando Hill. It's actually just after San Fernando Hill, that entrance to San
It's
Fernando
actually
Hill.
at the base of San Fernando Hill, so perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Wow,
the cost, there is a cost attached to it, and the tickets cost $350 each. Of course, you're getting with that, you're going to get your spot of tea and your writing activity, and the rest will go towards the nonprofit organization Project Rare.
Right. And there's coffee too, right? Because I mean, not everybody's into the tea thing, right? There'll be
there's
coffee,
coffee, and I think there'll be juice and water, yes.
Right. And running liquids for the entire session. So it's not like one cup of coffee you're getting and one bottle of water. And
that's
it's
right.
just liquids running throughout. Yeah. Yes. No alcohol, unfortunately. No alcohol for those who, maybe expecting. It's a non-alcoholic event.
Non-alcoholic. And something, Alana, another thing that I think that people will experience, but you have to be there to understand what I'm saying. I'm going to say it anyway, but you are going to experience the love. You're going to feel it. It's going to be tangible when you get there. And I challenge you, when you meet with Dr. Linnis next week, just to tell her that you felt it.
Okay.
When you come on Sunday.
Well, now you're putting me on the spot here, boy.
Yeah, well, apparently that's what we're doing today.
You understand, Dr. Linnis? Dr. Linnis, I think you ought to come, and you're the one who could say, well, yes, I did experience the love on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I have a commitment. I would surely come and experience it.
No, yeah, that's fine.
I know. My face, thanks.
Yes, I know Sundays are a busy day for yourself and other person, so that's fine. But yeah, we'll certainly do some. I guess there's going to be some photography, Karen, and so that you'll be able to feature some highlights of the event on social media.
Yes, we will have some photography, and maybe I'll try to capture some little pieces on video, not too much, because we want to keep the writing part confidential.
Okay, right. So that we could probably share a little bit about it next week, Friday also, for those. Or maybe if we can get someone who's participants to come on our program next Friday and talk about the experience.
Oh, yes, we can do that. Yes.
Yes. So you can probably identify someone who would be willing to come, not for very long, just 10 minutes or so, to talk about what it did for them, Yeah, so we could do that. Yes, so thank you so much, Karen, for being on our program. And Dr. Linnis, we actually do have a question. There is a young woman from Zambia who sent in a question to Dr. Linnis. The question is, why is it important for a person to discover what they want? And what made you share your story on the show, Dr. Linnis?
When she says discover what they want, I think she means what it is she came to the health service for, to be clear in their communication. I'm assuming that that's what she's referring to. Because
I don't know, I don't know if it means discovering or I don't know if it means discovering that you wanted to be a doctor, a medical doctor.
Could you read the question again, please?
Why is it important for a person to discover what they want? And what made you share your story on this show? I suspect it means, why is it important for you to discover that you wanted to be a doctor, a medical doctor?
Okay. Well,
yes, it is.
Think medical doctor. She confirmed it that way. Okay. So when your life is more than your career, and it's more than your job, right? It's more than what you do day to day. However, you spend a significant number of hours at your job. And, if you work a normal 8 to 4 or 9 to 5 job, that's pretty much a third of your day that's going towards employment, your day-to-day job. Some people also have to work weekends, some people work shifts, some people work overtime. When you're going to be spending that much of the rest of your life doing something, it is worth your while to think about it and to think about what it is you want to get out of your career or out of your working life, out of your employment. And think about both the advantages and the disadvantages, because, wanting to be a doctor, I wanted to help people. I wanted to serve the public. I wanted to have the ability to help in the healing of people or keeping people well. Now, what I didn't want was politics. Nobody told me there was politics in medicine. I have
Yes.
said many times, if I knew there was this much politics in medicine, I may have chosen a different career. But I think politics is in every field. I did not want the drama. I didn't want the competition. I didn't want the disrespect. There are lots of things that I didn't want. So if I was given the opportunity when I was younger to speak to doctors and to find out what their life was like, I may have had a bit more of an informed decision. So I probably would have never said I wanted to be an open heart surgeon had I known what open heart surgery was like. But I found out as an intern.
Yes.
Similarly, had I known that, you know, the long hours and how much they would demand, I may have made a different choice. So in some ways, I'm glad I didn't know, because this is where I needed to be. I needed to go through that phase to get to here. So you need to know more than just, I want to be a teacher because I like to have my summers free for vacation. You
Yeah.
need to know the ins and outs to put a little bit of effort into finding out what this career is about and finding out what it is you really love to do. Because I say to some people, if what you love is helping people in sports to recover from injuries, you don't necessarily need to be an orthopedic surgeon. You may love being a physiotherapist. So
Right.
find out about other careers that may give you what it is you want so that you can put your effort and energy into the right space.
Interesting. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, for that listener in Zambia, we are going to have Dr. Linnis Joseph back again on the program next week. So that please feel free to again send in your questions. If you want to send them in before Friday, you can do that so that we can have them and we know, well, okay, we're going to deal with our dear friend or dear sister from Zambia. So, Dr. Linnis, thank you so much for your time. A special thank you also to Karen Asgarali for coming in and sharing that little bit on trauma and the work that she's doing. And for those who are in Trinidad and who live in the Southland and you wish to attend the right party, please feel free to reach out to Karen Asgarali. The session starts at 2 p.m. sharp, and Karen is a person who is on time. So they want you to be seated by 2 p.m. so that we can start. And the tickets are $350 per person. And you're getting tea and you're getting liquids, tea, coffee, juice, water, and a tea plate and some great, great company. So thanks again for tuning into Heart Talk Between Sisters. Today is Friday, the 3rd of May, 2024. Dr. Linnis, I will see you again next week, Friday, God willing, on Heart Talk Between Sisters. Have a wonderful afternoon and a great weekend. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Are you ready to dive into heart-to-heart conversations that touch your soul? Look no further than Heart Talk Between Sisters, your story segment. Join us for a journey of laughter, tears, and unbreakable bonds as we explore the unique connection between sisters. From shared memories to deep reflections, our segment is a safe space to celebrate sisterhood in all its beauty and complexity. Let your heart soar as we discuss love, life, and everything in between, all with the understanding and warmth only sisters can provide. Whether you're reminiscing about childhood adventures or seeking advice on navigating life's twists and turns, Heart Talk Between Sisters is here for you. Tune in and feel the love radiate through the airwaves. Don't miss out on the magic of sisterly connection. Tune in to Heart Talk Between Sisters, your story segment today. For more information, call 1-868-743-4133. That's 1-868-743-4133.